Hi and welcome back to Mystery Systems. Today we will be looking at how you can make AAA authentication on a Cisco device. In my example, I have chosen to do it on the router. This can be done on the switch as well, but this is just to keep it simple. I made the topology here in Packet Tracer, and this is the network I will be using, and this is the IP addresses on each of these devices on the network, what they have of IP. So let's jump right into it. First of all, the switch have not gotten any configuration. It is just a dumb switch that I have plugged in the devices so they can talk with each other. So you can omit that, you just have to put that in. The only thing that I have configured is actually an IP address on PC1, because that is the one we will be using the SSH on. The SSA, so it can make SSH to the router, and I have given the AAA server the configuration and an IP address, and the router has this whole configuration, and I will just walk you through what I have done. Well, first of all, I have given router hostname, no IP domain lookup, username, so it has a default user to fail back to if, let's say, the radius server either drops this link or it cannot see the radius server, then you lock yourself out of the device if you configure it that it can only be using the radius, if you have configured that. So always have a backup user that you can log in to a device with locally, so if the radius server on some behalf does not have the option to communicate with the device. And I have enabled the secret passwords so there's a bit more security there, and we want to use the new SSH version, and I've created the domain, which in my instance is just called Test.local, and I've created these RS keys with a 2048 bits. And here is the fun part about AAA. You have to configure AAA to be enabled on a device before you can type in commands with AAA. And this is the command you type in first, then you get commands that you can now point to a radius server and whole other commands that will be available to you when you put in this command. Next one is that I want to use this AAA authentication with login, and I want to use the default group that is, and I want to prefer it starts using the radius server, and if that's not available or cannot be in contact with, then it will use the local user, which is this local backup user that I was talking about, so you don't lock yourself out of the device. Then lastly, with the radius configuration I want to point at our radius server, and I've just called it host in here, and I point to the IP address and the authentication port, which is the default port 1645, and I want to do it with this key, my radius key, which I have just called MyTripleAaaKey. Then on the line console, if you plug a cable to it, I want to use authentication right there, and I want to use on the VTU lines as well, so when you use the SSH configuration to it, and I have just chosen that I only want to allow SSH into the VTU lines. Lastly, on the router's configuration, I have just given the IP address on its interface here, and as it states here, the configuration to the AAA server, I will just show you. At first, when you put in the server, if you're doing this in Packet Tracer, then you'll have to click on the server, go to AAA, and when you start off, the service is off, so you have to put that on, and here you specify the client's name, which in my instance is R1. Afterwards, it is followed by the IP address of that, and you have to specify that key that it points to, and this is this shared key. And then you click add, and then it will pop up like this. Afterwards, you will create a user that can be used to log in with, and I have, in my example, just created a user named Ryan, and he has this password of password. And lastly, give it the IP information that it needs, the Radius server. And to end with, you go to PC1 or your client PC that you will use the SSH from, and give it the IP information. Then I will now show you that it works, this AAA authentication, and we will log in with the user Ryan. Ryan has a password of password, and you can see we're logged in. So Radius works, and we can see the enable password works as well, and that was test with a big T, 1, 2, 3, and SSH working. And now I'll show you as well that it works if it cannot contact the Radius server. Now I'll just show you that I cannot log in with the user Ryan since I have plugged out the cable of the switch, so there is no chance for the router 1 to even contact the AA server. We come into here, want to log in with the Ryan user. Packet tracer is a bit slow, so I have to use this for it too. And you can see it says login invalid. Now I'll show you that it's a really good thing to have the backup local user, so I'll show you that in a minute. And luckily for us, we made the local user on the router as well, so its username is test. And we will log in with this test 1, 2, 3, and we will just boom, there we go. And we can still use the enable just for measures to check it out. Yeah, so as you can see, you can log in with both things. I will recommend you clearly that. So, of course, you don't want to run into a situation that you will be locked out of a device, so you have to reset it. That's how you do it, and I have hope this helps. And I will put the configuration down in the description as well, as usual. And I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.